We need to get a divorce, Leo. The words, spoken with a chilling calm, came from a woman with impossibly long legs stretched out before me, shimmering in black nylon. My hands, which had been kneading the arch of her foot, froze. I looked up, plastering a look of pure theatrical heartbreak onto my face. You, heartbreaker. You get bored so easily. I squeezed her foot for emphasis. Ow, what was that for? Chloe yelped. I let go, my voice a low, mournful sigh. Fine, but what can I do? I love you. I suppose the three of us could make it work. I paused, then brought her foot theatrically to my nose and took a deep whiff. Huh, still got that new car smell. Chloe's face flushed. You're disgusting. What are you even talking about? Thinking of something like that, I ignored her, my gaze steady. Do you get it now? Get what? That's the pain I feel when you say you want a divorce. She was quiet for a second, then turned her head away. That's it. That's all the pain you feel. She pursed her lips and turned back, about to say something else. But in that instant, I had leaned in. The tips of our noses were touching. She jerked back, her face instantly crimson. What? What were you doing so close to me? I stared into her eyes, deadly serious. I have to see if your body's been snatched. Body snatched. She scoffed. You've been watching too many sci-fi movies. I slowly stood up, looming over her. If you want to prove you're the real Chloe, you'll have to answer a few questions that only the real Chloe and I would know. Chloe eyed me for a moment, then rose to her feet. Fine. Challenge accepted. Let the games begin, I declared with mock gravity. Chloe sat back down on the sofa, crossing one leg over the other, and looked up at me expectantly. Go on, I cleared my throat. Question 1. What is Chloe's favorite color? Black. I narrowed my eyes. Explains the lingerie collection. Whump. A throw pillow hit me square in the chest. Pervert. I dodged the follow-up attack. Hey, we're an old married couple. Nothing I haven't seen before. Chloe scowled, still bristling. I decided not to push it. Next question. What body wash does Chloe prefer? She put down the pillow she'd been about to launch and answered through gritted teeth. Lemon verbena. I snapped my fingers. Correct. Next. What is Chloe's most hated food? Cilantro, pineapple on pizza, an abomination, ketchup on a hot dog. Only if you're under 10. The last time we kissed. Last night, she shot me a look full of accusation. See, that's what I'm talking about. Last night we were all over each other, and today she wants a divorce. I sighed dramatically. Favorite animal? Kittens. Favorite fruit? Bananas. Favorite weather? A soft, quiet rain. Favorite person? You. Hey, you're trying to trick me. A smile finally broke through on her face. I sighed again. Would I do something like that? The withering look she gave me was answer enough. You wound me. I'm truly hurt. I clutched my chest and staggered back a step. Fine, time to get serious. Chloe just raised an eyebrow, completely unfazed. Bring it. A small smile played on my lips. Where did we have our first date? The movies, the pair of mugs on the counter. When did we buy them? Our first year of marriage. We got them at Target downstairs. And a succulent on the windowsill. We bought it at the garden center when we went looking for camellias and jasmine, both of which we killed. Then you sat with me for a whole weekend making a giant bouquet out of pipe cleaners, telling me that this way, our memories could be preserved forever. She was on a roll now, a smug look on her face. She pointed around the room. I know what you're going to ask next, so let me just save you the trouble. Her finger moved from object to object as she spoke. That little tank has the turtle we won at the street festival. We also got some guppies and goldfish, but they all got eaten by that bass you caught at the lake. Those little stuffed animals are the ones you gave me for my birthday. They're hideous, and you got so nervous when I told you. That calligraphy set is something I bought for you in secret, because I saw you admiring it. You actually cried for a solid 10 minutes. And the curtains, the sofa, we spent weeks picking them out when we first moved in. You said this would be the place we'd live for the rest of our lives. You said that no matter what happened, we'd always have this place to come back to. A harbor where we knew someone was waiting. The photos on the wall are from every trip we've taken over the past 3 years. The first one is from our first date, the one from the top of the Ferris wheel at the amusement park. The one of us soaked to the bone and hiding from a thunderstorm under a gazebo. She went on listing every item, every memory, with perfect accuracy. When she finished, the mood in the room had shifted. I broke the silence with a laugh. Wow, babe, I had no idea you were so into me. See Mia, I pulled her into a hug. This time, she didn't pull away. She just melted into my arms, patting my shoulder as she spoke, her voice still a little defiant. So, did I pass? I chuckled softly. For now, you passed. For now, she asked, pulling back slightly. I released her. That was the emotional intelligence portion. Now, I need to test your IQ. Child's play. Let's do it, she scoffed, leaning back like a general awaiting an attack. I asked quietly, which is bigger, 0.11 or 0.8? 0.8, obviously. Her answer was immediate. I squinted at her. Are you sure? Chloe nodded. Are you questioning my intelligence? I chuckled. Of course not. All right, next question. Does 0.7 pounds equal 14 ounces? No, you're sure? I pressed. She leaned back on the sofa, radiating pride. Positive. How could I get that wrong? I muttered under my breath. I don't know, I said. Ask the person who got it wrong at the farmer's market last week. What did you say? She shot up, glaring at me. I quickly backed away. It wasn't my fault. We were at the market, and a vendor's sign said a bag of cherries was 14 ounces, weighed on a different scale, and it was only 0.7 pounds. A clear ripoff. I was ready to go get the guy a piece of my mind, but he just looked at us and said, 0.7 pounds is 14 ounces. He even acted like he was giving us a deal, and this genius Chloe actually nodded along in agreement until I had to slowly, carefully explain the math to her. Oh, so 0.7 pounds is 11.2 ounces. So you must be an imposter, I declared. The real Chloe could never be this smart. Before I finished the sentence, something was shoved into my mouth. I licked it instantly. The something was yanked back with a gasp. You're a freak. I shrugged nonchalantly. Hey, you're the one who stuck your foot in my face. It was a purely defensive reflex. Can you blame me? Chloe was so furious she was speechless. She waved a dismissive hand and sank back onto the sofa. Next question. Just ask the next one. I'll prove to you I'm smarter than you think. Oh, ho, I said, stroking my chin. Okay, then I'm cranking up the difficulty. Bring it on. This one's tough. Listen carefully. I watched her, a smile growing on my face. Chloe crossed her legs again, waving a hand impatiently. Spit it out. I cleared my throat. There are 3 gods, A, B, and C. A is the god of truth who always tells the truth. B is the god of lies who always lies. And C is the god of chaos who might tell the truth or might lie completely at random. I paused, looking at Chloe. You with me so far? She nodded, signaling for me to continue. Okay, I said, slowing down. You don't know which god is which. You can ask a total of 3 yes or no questions to identify them. You can ask any god, but they will only answer in their own language using the words ja and nein. And you don't know which word means yes and which means no. How do you figure out who is who? I finished and watched her. She fell deep into thought. A minute ticked by. Her brow furrowed. You can always surrender, I teased. Chloe shot me a glare, then let out a breath. Get ready to lose. My smile widened. So, you have the answer. She snapped her fingers, a confident smirk spreading across her face. Listen up. I kept a hand to my ear. The key, she began, is to embed the unknown response into the question itself. We don't even know what ja or d means if we make the question self. For example, if I were to ask you if 2 plus 2 equals 4, would you say ja? No matter who you ask, truth or lies, and no matter what ja means, the answer to that true premise will always be ja. The god of truth would say ja, meaning yes, and the god of lies would be forced to say d, meaning no, because he has to lie about what his answer would be. The same logic applies if the premise is false. They both say that. So first, we need to find a god who is definitely not chaos. Ask God B. If I were to ask you if A is the god of chaos, would you say yeah? If B answers yeah, then C cannot be chaos. If B answers DA, then it cannot be chaos. Either way, you've identified one god who is definitely either truth or lies. She smiled at me. For the second question, you go to the god you just identified as not being chaos and ask them. If I were to ask you if you're the god of truth, would you say yeah? The god of truth will always answer ja, and the god of lies will always answer da. Now you know who they are, and you know what ja and da mean. Chloe let out a breath and stretched. The third question is easy. You ask the god you've identified. If I were to ask you if B is the god of chaos, would you say, based on their answer, you know for sure who B is. And by elimination, you know the last one. When she finished, she looked impossibly proud. I burst into applause. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Chloe grinned. Is that all you've got? Those logic puzzles are too easy. Seeing her so puffed up, I got an idea. Since you're not challenged enough, how about we add some stakes? A suspicious look crossed her face. She knew me too well. What kind of stakes? I held up 2 fingers. A game of rock, paper, scissors with consequences. No way. Her refusal was instant. Ah, is my wifey afraid her big brain won't hold up? What? She puffed out her cheeks, indignant. She threw her hands up. Fine, let's make it even more interesting. More interesting. My eyes lit up. Chloe grinned like she'd had a few too many drinks. Loser has to do whatever the winner wants. I raise an eyebrow. Anything. Fine, but getting a divorce is off the table. Deal. All right, I said. Let's begin. Ready when you are? What is 0.8 asterisk 0.5? 0.4. Impressive. I clapped. Well, winner, what is your command? Chloe thought for a moment, a smug look on her face, then waved me over. I scurried to her side like an eager puppy. Your wish is my command. The next thing I knew, both her feet were landing in my lap. Foot rub and don't stop until I say so. I looked up at her, a wicked grin spreading across my face. That's it. Oh Chloe, you're such an amateur. Prepare for the ultimate tongue massage. And, no weird stuff, she added, as if reading my mind. That includes using your tongue or tickling me. She saw right through me. Damn it. I sighed and started rubbing her feet. She let out a contented hum. I'm right there. Her moans started sounding a little suggestive. I quickly tried to distract myself. Okay, you're good. I'll give you that. But what about does 0.9 repeating equal 1? No, wrong. I threw my hands up in victory, gloating. Chloe sat up, staring at me in disbelief. What? No way. You're making that up. How can they be equal? Seeing her so flustered, I smiled. If you don't think they're equal, then find me a number that exists between 0.9 repeating and 1. She started to answer immediately. 0.0000. Her voice trailed off as she realized the problem. I chuckled. What's wrong? Can't think of one. Chloe stomped her foot in frustration. Of course, I can. Just give me a second. She thought for several minutes but came up with nothing. This can't be right. Are you playing some kind of word game with me? She asked, looking up. I just smiled. Let me give you a simple, not entirely rigorous proof. She nodded, sitting up straight like an attentive student. I sat across from her. I ask you, is 1/3 equal to 0.3 repeating? Yes. And what is 1/3 asterisk 3? It's 1. So, what do you get when you multiply 0.3 repeating by 3? 0.9 repeating. I just looked at her. A wave of disbelief washed over her face. Now, that's not a formal proof. I added, it gets into the density of real numbers and decimal cuts. I looked over and saw her face was a complete blank. I grinned. Okay, but definitely the real Chloe. Why? She asked, confused. I took a few stealthy steps backward because the real Chloe isn't that smart. The next second, she was flying at me. You are so dead. I stood my ground. If she was going to charge, I was going to catch her. A moment later, she was struggling in my arms. Her face beat red. You are such a pervert. I made a grasping motion in the air with my hand and gave her a lecherous grin. How'd you know? Hi. My triumphant laughter was cut short by a pillow smacking me in the face. Physical assault on the referee. That's a penalty. I yelled. Chloe raised an eyebrow. So what if I broke the rules? I broke into a smile. You are absolutely right. That was just a warm-up. It doesn't count. She nodded, satisfied. I won't take advantage of you. Tell me what you want. My mind instantly raced with possibilities. In that case, put this on you. You've had this planned all along. Chloe stood before me, blushing furiously, dressed in a French maid outfit. I just shrugged. Planned or not, a loss is a loss. Now, I believe you owe me a master. What? Her face was practically steaming. But when she saw the teasing look in my eyes, she clenched her jaw and forced the word out. Master. She collapsed onto the sofa as if all the strength had gone out of her. The word sent a jolt right through me. Pure bliss. All right, I said, grinning. Next round, Chloe pulled herself together, her eyes sharp with focus. She was determined to win back her pride. Does an event with a probability of 0 mean it's impossible? I asked, drawing out the words. Think carefully. Remember your old college stats class. She stroked her chin, her brow furrowed. I think it's still possible for it to happen. I leaned in closer, goading her on. And why is that? Chloe pushed a dozen framed photos of us from our travels to one side of the coffee table. Then she opened a drawer and froze. You looked, oh crap. It was my emergency stash of condoms. Chloe's face turned a shade of red I'd never seen before. How many times are you planning on doing it? She hissed. She kept digging, and her face got even redder. This time she pulled out a very thin lacy set. I yelled, that's a misunderstanding. I swear. Her mouth fell open. She tossed it aside. A misunderstanding? Who has a misunderstanding that results in white silk stockings and a nurse's uniform in their living room drawer? I wisely kept my mouth shut. Chloe was fuming, muttering as she rummaged. I guess the maid outfit wasn't enough for you, was it? Honestly, I trembled in silence. After a moment, she finally found what she was looking for. It's been a while, but I finally got it. A pen and a notebook. Watch and learn. Mr. Big Sister's about to school you, she said, looking at me with a triumphant smirk. I moved closer, resting my head on her shoulder and breathing in the scent of her hair. She didn't get angry, just gave me a quick glance before continuing. Okay, look. Intuitively, we think 0 probability means impossible, but in a continuous probability distribution, that's not necessarily true. She drew a number line on the paper. See this line? If I ask you to pick a single exact point on this line, is it possible to pick one? I nodded with a smile. But does that single point have any length? She continued. I shook my head. Exactly, Chloe said. So according to geometric probability, the chance of picking that exact point is 0. But is it an impossible event? No. I started clapping. Amazing. She flashed a proud smile. It's nothing. All right then, Professor Chloe. On to the next question. It seems a certain someone has forgotten something, she said, a wicked grin spreading across her face. I broke into a cold sweat. She hadn't let it slide. Your command, Chloe smiled. I'm not a pervert like some people. My request is, she glanced at a box on the shelf. I grabbed it, opened it, and swallowed hard. Do I have to? She nodded with sadistic glee. I took a deep breath, took the contents, and started to change. Who told you to change out here? Go to the bedroom. I just scoffed. We're married. What haven't you seen? A minute later, I was standing there in a slinky sequin fire engine red cocktail dress. Chloe doubled over with laughter. I remained completely unfazed. I even sauntered over to the mirror and gave my butt a little pat. Damn, I still look good. Chloe, who had just taken a sip of water, sprayed it all over the coffee table. You're unbelievable. I just shrugged. A loss is a loss, but I definitely scored a point there. Okay, next round, I announced. Let's hear it. I smiled, then pulled 3 paper cups from behind my back. Turn around. She gave me a puzzled look, but did as she was told. A moment later, I said, okay, you can turn back now. She turned to see 3 cups upside down on the table. What's this? I pointed at them. There's a prize under only one of these cups. I want you to pick one. Chloe frowned, looking from me to the cups. What are you up to? Hurry up, I urged. All right, stop rushing me. She hesitantly reached out and placed her hand on one of the cups. This one. No, wait. This one. She moved her hand. No, this one. I grinned. Final answer. Seeing my smirk, she got even more suspicious and switched her hand again. No, I choose this one. You sure? She bit her lip, hesitating. Her hand hovered, then came down firmly. This one. She pressed down on the middle cup and was about to lift it when I grabbed her hand. Wait, you can't open it yet. She looked confused as I gently lifted her hand from the cup. Because you're my wife, I'm going to help you out. I'll eliminate one of the wrong choices. With that, I lifted the cup on her left. It was empty. I looked at her. Now, I'm giving you a choice. Do you want to stick with your original pick, or do you want to switch to the other cup? My eyes flicked to the cup on the far right. Chloe hesitated, her brow deeply furrowed. After a few moments, she let out a breath. I'll switch. A smile touched my lips. Final answer. She nodded. My hand went to the cup on the right. I started to lift it, then stopped and looked up at her. Can I ask why you switched? She looked at me, then thought for a moment before explaining. When there were 3 cups, my chance of picking the right one was 1 in 3. When you open an empty cup, you didn't change that initial probability. So, there's still a 1/3 chance my first pick was right, which means there must be a 2/3 chance that the prize is under the other cup. Switching gives me better odds. I smiled. Then, let's see. She nodded, swallowing nervously. I slowly lifted the cup. Chloe's eyes were fixed on it. They lit up and then almost instantly filled with tears. I picked up the object from under the cup, got down on one knee, and slid the ring on her finger. You answered every question right. So okay, I'll agree to a divorce. She gasped. But can you give me one more chance? Let me propose to you all over again. Chloe, will you marry me? Tears streamed down her face. She opened her mouth to speak, but then she stopped, crossed her arms, and turned her head away. Who would want to marry a pervert like you? I took her hand. It was soft and warm. If you don't want this pervert, no one will. Take pity on me. I looked up at her, smiling. She snuck a glance at me, then sighed, turned around, and threw herself into my arms. You're impossible. She sobbed into my shoulder. If I say yes, you have to promise me you'll stop being so reckless. Promise me. I held her tight, stroking her back. I'll do my best, I said softly. But how can I stand by and watch someone hurt my wife? She bit my shoulder, not hard, but firmly. If something happens to you, I don't want to live anymore, so you have to promise to stay safe. I murmured. This whole divorce thing was because of what happened last week. We were walking home at night when a group of drunk guys started harassing Chloe while I was grabbing something from a convenience store. There was no way I was letting that slide. I put myself between them and her in a heartbeat, but they were drunk and belligerent, slurring insults and getting ready to throw a punch. I've been taking self-defense classes, and I wasn't about to back down. I took them down pretty quickly. I thought it was over, but one of them, a skinny guy, came out of nowhere with a shovel and swung it right at Chloe. I didn't even think. I just moved in front of her. The next thing I knew, my back was on fire. The commotion drew a crowd, and people helped subdue the guys until the police arrived. Chloe was crying, holding me up, looking at the blood with a mix of terror and guilt. At the hospital, the doctor said I was lucky. The gash was deep, but it had missed my spine and kidneys. A few inches in the wrong direction could have meant paralysis or shock from blood loss. When Chloe heard that, her face went white. She just kept blaming herself. Why are you so stupid? Why do you always have to be the hero? Last time, and now this. She cried, pounding on my chest. I could only hold her. Because you're my wife. If I don't protect you, who will? It reminded me of the fire. We were at a haunted house for Halloween, and some faulty wiring sparked. The whole place, full of flammable props and cheap wooden structures, went up in seconds. Smoke was everywhere. We were lost in the maze-like corridors, searching for an exit, as the ceiling beams above us groaned and cracked. Just as we saw a sliver of light from an emergency exit, I heard a splintering sound from above. A huge burning beam came crashing down. I shoved Chloe forward and took the full impact on my back. She was fine, but I wasn't. She cried for days, that time, too. I guess I'm both unlucky and the luckiest man alive. When I was a kid, my parents and I were in a car crash. A truck lost control. I was the only survivor. At the funeral, my relatives were like vultures trying to get their hands on the settlement money and my parents' assets. I stood at the door with a kitchen knife and chased them away. They kept coming back, but a kind woman from the local community center, Mrs. Gable, stepped in. She helped me, taught me how to cook, how to do laundry, how to live. With the money from my parents and what I earned from odd jobs, I got by. I was lucky then, too. When I was desperate for work, a man who owned a small bookstore hired me. A kid no one else would look at. "Hey kid, want to help out at my shop?" he asked. It changed my life. The work was simple: organizing shelves, running the register. He let me read whatever I wanted. He'd sit out front in his lawn chair listening to an old radio. And when I'd look over, he'd pat the stool next to him and tell me stories that weren't in any of the books. I was happy that summer. Then, in high school, I met the other most important person in my life. I was a quiet, nerdy kid who kept to himself. My only goal was to get into a good college and make a decent living. All the drama of teenage life seemed to pass me by. But the universe has a funny way of proving you wrong. One day, a girl bounced into my world. "Oh, I'm reading that book, too." I looked up. A ridiculously cute girl was smiling down at me. When she saw me looking, she blushed. "Sorry, I wasn't trying to read over your shoulder. I just noticed." The sunlight in the window caught the long lashes framing her bright eyes. From that day on, she was everywhere. "Wow, I love that book," she'd say excitedly. "Ugh, last night's episode of that show was so sad," her eyes welling up. "So tired. I could fall asleep right here. You came to the library without me. Traitor, do you want this bagel? I'm not hungry. Help me get rid of it. Oh, that looks good. Can I have a bite? What else do you like to read? Let's trade Wow, you're first in our class. That's amazing. My grades. I think I lost my report card. Haha, can you tutor me? I'll pay you in my secret stash of snacks." As fate would have it, a seating chart change made us desk partners. Yes, we're desk partners. This is awesome, she cheered. She was always pestering me, and even though my replies were short, her energy never faded. She begged me to be her tutor. I refused, but she was relentless, putting on a whole pity act until I finally gave in. "Great," she'd said. "Since you won't take money, I'll be in charge of your lunch every day." And she was. We stayed desk partners all through high school. It wasn't until I was walking past the main office one day that I found out why. I heard her voice inside pleading with our homeroom teacher. "Come on, Mr. Peterson. You've seen my grades. They've shot up since I started sitting next to Leo. If you separate us, they'll plummet. You don't want that on your conscience, do you?" Somehow, she talked him into it. "Fine," he'd sighed. "But no dating then," in a whisper. "Or if you do, keep it on the down low." I heard her giggle. "Thanks, Mr. P." He'd shoot her out, and she practically ran into me in the hallway. She didn't even look embarrassed. She just waved. "Hey there," she said before darting into the girls' bathroom, where I heard a faint, muffled shriek of victory. Later, I learned she didn't even like most of the books she talked about. She'd been secretly getting my reading list and plowing through them just so she'd have something to talk to me about. The snacks she shared were her absolute favorites. The lunches she bought me every day were paid for with her saved-up allowance. We ended up at the same college. After we graduated, I stood on her parents' doorstep. "Please give me your blessing to marry your daughter," I said, my voice shaking. "I love her more than anything. She's the only one for me." I was braced for rejection, but they just smiled. "We've always liked you, son." They stepped aside, revealing Chloe crouched behind them, hiding her bright red face in her hands. She stood up and launched herself into my arms. "You said it," she mumbled into my chest. "You're stuck with me for life now." I held her tighter than I'd ever held anything. "For life. So you see, I'm an unlucky man who became the luckiest man in the world." Chloe feels guilty that I risked my life for her. But when I tell her it's because you're my wife, she gets angry. "Then I won't be your wife anymore. Then maybe you'll start taking care of yourself." I know she doesn't mean it. She's just scared. Every time I get hurt, I know it tears her apart. She sit by my hospital bed all night holding my hand. And I'll pretend to be asleep while I hear her quiet crying. The scars on my back are a map of our life together. Whenever we're close, she traces them with her fingertips, her eyes full of love. Now we're holding each other again. After a while, Chloe's hands start to wander. "I'm still worried," she says, her voice low and determined. "We're making a baby right now. I bet you won't be so reckless when you have a kid to think about. If you are, I'll just have to take it out on them." Before I can even process what she's saying, she's on top of me. Later, much later, Chloe is lying in my arms, giggling. "I knew you were a pervert," she says. "You were pretty excited about that Maid outfit, weren't you?" "I have no idea what you're talking about." I lie. A sly grin spreads across her face. "Oh, really? Well then, I guess we'll just have to go again and again until you admit it." My God. After, as we lie tangled together, we talk about the past. "You know, it wasn't a coincidence that I started talking to you. She says, "It wasn't," she laughs. "You probably don't remember, but we met before high school at the middle school entrance exams. I got lost on the way to the testing site, and you found me, calmed me down, and walked me there. I probably wouldn't have even gotten into our high school if it weren't for you." The memory, hazy and distant, comes back to me. "That was just the beginning." She continues, "When I saw you in my homeroom class on the first day, you have no idea how happy I was. I just didn't know how to approach you. You were always so quiet, just sitting there with a book." She snuggles closer. "But I'm smart. I figured out the key was what you were reading. I watched you for weeks, wrote down all the titles, and read every single one. It was the only way I could think of to open the door." I'm stunned. I was to pray all along. "And the more I got to know you," she says, her voice growing shy, "the more I fell for you. Your kindness, your strength, your gentle heart, everything. I realized I wanted to be the most important person in your life, so I made sure I was the only one who got a chance. You're not mad, are you?" She whispers, her warm breath against my ear. It suddenly clicks. Why? Several girls who used to ask me for help with homework suddenly cooled off. And in college, too. "Of course not," I say, my voice a little weak. "Good," she purrs. "Just kidding. I hope so." 2 years later, we have a daughter. She is perfect, an absolute angel. Watching Chloe hold her, I can't help but smile. I really am the luckiest man in the world. Alright, that's all for now. My wife is calling me. I have to go give her a foot rub. I think she's wearing that nurse outfit I like. Once my treatment is over, I'll come back and tell you another story. See you later, end.